Hey, fellow writers. How can interviewing and reporting, practices that are usually associated with like nonfiction, journalistic writing, and that sort of thing, how can those practices help you with your fiction writing? Great question, important question. I'm going to try to tackle today in the next 10 minutes or so. It's Sam with the Friday video for you. And if you didn't notice already, I am back in the States. Um, Coming to you live now. I know if you didn't know, if you haven't been following my updates, I've been on a 2 week trip in Indonesia. That's partially what I'm going to talk about today. Um, and so my last two videos were pre-recorded. My posting schedule has been off from the usual because there were days I didn't have internet access at all. We were in some pretty remote areas, but got back yesterday, all safe and sound. I did get sick on the trip. That was no fun, but I'm mostly better now, and expecting to return to some semblance of normalcy in the next week or so. So, thank you for all the well wishes and prayers and everything that you guys sent. I appreciate it a lot, and it was cool keeping up with your comments on the days I did have internet access when I was able to. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about some reporting and interviewing and such, which is part of what I did on my trip. Let me tell you about the kind of work I do, if you didn't know already, and the kind of writing I do for work. Because I am a creative writer. I am pursuing my creative writing dream right now, as actively as I can. But since most of us creative writers are not instant overnight billionaires, I'm still working a day job too. And my day job, I'm also a writer, which is great. It's more like business, content writing, nonfiction writing for a business than a novel writing. But I'm still thrilled that I get to be a writer in my day job too. That's a great stepping stone. Sorry, it's a great job in itself. And I hope one day it might be a stepping stone to even bigger things, like even more success in writing. But that's one thing at a time. So if you didn't know already, I work for a company for a nonprofit missions organization. It's called Seed Company, SEED, like a seed you plant on the ground. Our parent organization, if you might have heard, it's more well known. You might have heard of Wycliffe Bible Translators if you're in those circles. But anyway, so I work for Seed Company here in Arlington, Texas, and we the goal is to get the Bible into every language in the world. I mean, it may not happen. It's going to take years and years, but we're working on it, and other organizations are too. But we work with different people groups, often indigenous remote people groups, because they're the ones who, in many cases, have never had any writing in their language at all, much less the Bible or other significant texts. Yes, we work with these often minority, often remote indigenous people groups and help them to have translation in their language. And people, and so I tell people that, and what our mission is, and they're like, that's great. But then, how do you, as a writer, play into that? When I first told people I was getting a job at a Bible translation organization, they're like, "Are you writing the Bible? How does that work?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, no." So, since we're a nonprofit, basically the short answer is we're funded by investors, by people who can give to the cause, who are invested in this cause, and since we're funded by those investors, we want to. I'm using shop talk now, but steward those relationships, meaning send them updates and maintain good relationships with our investors. So my team of writers, what we do is basically write reports that go out to our investors to say, here's what's happening with your money, here's what we're doing, or from our perspective more accurately, here's what God is doing with your investment, here's some updates from the people group, here's how the project is going, and please give us more money. But we make it sound pretty because we're professional writers, and that's what we do. But we write these kind of reports that give updates and progress to our investors. If you've ever supported a missionary or a nonprofit, and they send you updates once in a while or newsletters or whatever, that's similar-ish to the kind of thing I write. So I've described it as kind of a cross between journalism and marketing, because there is a reporting aspect. Well, actually, a lot of times our information comes secondhand because we can't physically go over to the people groups every time. In fact, this past week was my first opportunity to do so. So what we do is we have our partners overseas email us information or put it in our database or whatever, and we access that information online and kind of craft reports based on it. But when possible, like I did this past couple of weeks, they like sending people out to do first-hand reporting. So like I said, it's so these past few weeks I was actually was able to visit two of these remote indigenous people groups that we support in very remote rural parts of Indonesia, and they each had what we call a Bible dedication, which is like when they finish the Bible, or actually these groups are both finishing just the New Testament, but when they finish, when they publish the New Testament, they have this big community celebration where they have songs and dances and like in their traditional culture, and speeches from church and community leaders and stuff like that, and it's a big community affair, and they all get excited, and it's a big deal. So that's a big thing we want to report on for our investors. And I was able to, I had read about it before and seen videos and such, but this past week I was able to attend two of those and also interview some people. I had to use an interpreter most of the time because, again, these people do not speak English. But I was able to do interviews with the people involved and ask them things like, how does this make you feel? What's the significance of this event happening? That kind of thing. So, yeah, we were able to do first-hand reporting, or I was this past week. Like I said, it's kind of a cross between journalism and marketing because, that's the journalistic side of it, the side where it's like fact-finding and reporting and such. I'd say the main difference is like journalism is supposed to be objective and just completely unbiased. And I mean, it's not like we embellish things. It's not that we make things up. But since we are writing for a specific purpose for our investors, there is kind of a tone or a goal we want to focus on. We look for what we call impact stories, meaning we want to see the impact that the Bible is making, or the impact that our work is doing, that the investor's gift, if you will, is making. So we look for things like people telling us stories about how the Bible has changed their lives, or just how it's made a difference in their community, that kind of thing. And we look for good quotes or impact stories like those. So that's why I say it's not completely like journalism, because it does have a marketing focus where we want to promote us and the work we're doing, and convince an audience to keep being involved with it. But it's kind of reporting with a with a marketing spin. So, anyways, somewhere between the worlds of journalism and marketing, that's what I do. That's what I got to do these past couple of weeks, and that was a long introduction to tell you what I'm to try to talk about writing applications in the next 2 minutes. But anyway, yeah, I got to do some reporting and some interviewing, which was great. A really cool experience. I'd love to tell you more about my trip in more detail, but since I was collecting data for work, I probably won't share it mostly in these channels, like to my broad social media audience. You can, if you're friends with me on Facebook, like on my personal account, you can look for more information there. And if you want to follow the things I wrote and hear about my trip, you can check Seed Company's website. It's just Google Seed Company, or I think it's seedcompany.com, or either .org. Actually, I should know. Yeah, it's .com, seedcompany.com, and they're hopefully it's there's nothing out there yet. Hopefully, I'll get the chance to publish an article or a blog post or something there in the next little while. But yeah, keep checking that. Anyway, so I got to do some interviewing and reporting, which is cool. I was able to conduct interviews with people, again, through an interpreter. Just some of the indigenous people in these remote groups. Some of them were members of the translation team who have worked on the Bible translation. Some of them were just other community members who were interested and invested in the cause. But I would ask them things like, what difference has this made to you? I mean, yeah, but like I had to get in my mindset of doing interview questions and do not just not just the facts, although that's important. Facts like facts like maybe how long has this community been without the Bible, or how long have they been working on this translation project, and how many copies were printed, how many how many speakers are there, all important stuff. But I was looking for kind of the personal testimonies, like how has the Bible made a difference to you, or why is this event or this project important to you, or what does it mean to you that this is now complete, and that you can read it in your own language, which I don't have time to go into it right now, but just we talk about at work. I mean, we in our American culture don't appreciate that, how in some of these other cultures where their language is not universal, and and some minority groups are marginalized and oppressed, just having one, any writing, but also two, scripture in their language really brings a sense of dignity and hope to these people. Just that their language is important and it matters, and that's really cool. So I asked them things like, what does it mean to you to be able to read this in your own language, and how does that make a difference? And so those are the kinds of questions I ask. And then during the actual ceremony, which was like a half a day thing in each morning, I went to two of them. During the actual ceremony, I didn't have time to do interviews right then and there because it was a big ceremony, but I was trying to do reporting, like, write down details, describe the setting, describe the event. I mean, um, we don't. I didn't spend like a long time in my article that I wrote, the one draft I've written so far, just describing the setting because we're focusing more on like again quotes and testimonies from the people. But I spent a little bit and just tried to describe like how many people are there, what did it look like, what kind of things were there, details that your audience will want to know. So I got some really cool opportunities to do interviews and reporting. Makes me feel like a writer. So, sometimes just sitting at a desk and getting reports from someone else. I mean, I still love the job. Every job has some tedious parts. No job is exciting every day, but getting out there and being able to like record things firsthand and witness things and write about it was really cool. So yeah, that's the kind of thing I've been doing these past 2 weeks. I'm thankful for the opportunity, and just trying to figure out how that applies to your writing. I would say when you're, I mean, people talked about like getting inspiration for their fiction and such from real sources, either from maybe interviewing people or just real experiences. Obviously, you take everything in real life and apply it to and your fiction kind of comes from that. Your writing kind of comes from that. Obviously, don't well, anyways, this is a whole different thing. I was going to kind of talk about like journalism practices. If you're writing fiction, pretty much anything goes. If you're doing journalism, you can't embellish and you can't like combine certain characters into one. People gotten fired for that before. If you're writing fiction, kind of anything goes. So like take inspiration from real interviews, real people. If you want to conduct interviews with people. And I know authors and even probably fiction authors have done that too, about certain topics. Can be a way to get to know people and get to know how people talk and kind of find personalities and perspectives to put into your stories. But when you're doing those things, ask the hard questions or ask the personal questions that make a connection. So don't just stick with the facts, although that's important. But again, ask things like, what does this mean to you? How does that make you feel? What's the significance of this? I'm trying to think of just other examples, but like what difference has it made? What's the impact that X or whatever it is you're writing about has made in your life or to you? Ask them things like that. Ask them probing questions that'll make them think and make them share a personal story. There may be yeah, there may be lots under the surface if you only know how to get to it. And I'm still kind of young in this art. Again, I don't. I mean, I'm thankful for the opportunities I've had, but I don't get to do like first-hand interviewing all the time. But it's cool and I can. So I'm still learning how to ask the best questions too, especially across language barriers. It's hard sometimes, but yeah, ask questions that will get into, I guess, people's minds and hearts, and hopefully create a connection that you and your reader can use then too. Okay. So I know that was a lot. I went over 10 minutes. I try to keep these to 10 minutes, but I just had a lot to share. So yeah, I'm sure there's lots of applications you can find from journalistic writing to fiction writing too. But I would say focus on details like setting, scenery details, but also when you're dealing with people and characters, especially look for the heart of the story or like the story behind the story. Kind of, it's like you have your story, you have your overarching. Here's the fact of what happened, but then you have what did this mean to the people, or what did this mean to a person going through it and dealing with it for themselves, and that kind of story often has a more emotional and powerful connection for the reader. That's all for now. Thank you for listening and watching. Thanks again for your well wishes on my trip. I hope that helps your writing in some way, and have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.